So we have the Jujutsu Kaisen Chapter 268 spoilers, and it seems as though we are finally seeing the end of Sukuna, and also a few more unexpected revelations like the state of Urarame and Yuta. So let's jump straight into these spoilers. So the chapter kicks off with a little chit chat between Megumi and Sukuna's soul, where Sukuna is absolutely raging that he got defeated by some brat. And bro is on some next level copium and starts to try and blame Megumi for his defeat. He says, "How dare you try to live on? You let your body be taken over by me, you killed your own sister, you even rejected a hand that was offered to you." So it sounds like Sukuna is shifting some of the blame of his defeat onto the fact that Megumi is still wanting to live on, or whatever he's yapping about at this point. Anyway, Sukuna says to Megumi for him to give up and he can no longer live a proper life, and that he should just give Sukuna back the control. So essentially Sukuna is just trying his new technique, Divine Gaslight, but clearly it ain't working, since bro looks like he's straight out of a Ben 10 cartoon right now. But this is supposed to be the embers of Sukuna, but I think JJK could have made it a little more sinister given Sukuna's character. But Megumi speaks back to Sukuna and asks why Sukuna is so desperate and that there is still one of his fingers that is left. And he warns Sukuna that if Yuji peels him off, he will forever be gone. Megumi then says that the resonance was horrendous for Sukuna since it severed the connection between Sukuna's 19 fingers and his soul to the one finger being stored away, meaning that it will lose all purpose and won't have any connection to Sukuna's soul essentially. Megumi then says he is relieved to know that Sukuna is also terrified of truly dying. Megumi then claps back on what Sukuna said and says he never intended to live a proper life anyways. And he says that he's going to try and live on for someone else one more time. So maybe he has a romantical interest, or the more logical and probable scenario being he wants to live on to help Yuji Itadori. Anyways, we jump back to reality as Yuji's domain crumbles after this huge black flash, as Sukuna's reincarnated body gets undone from Megumi's body as well. Sukuna screams in agony as he is peeled off from Megumi's body, so Megumi is finally back and has control over his body once again, and Yuji looks down on the residuals of Sukuna. Yuji asks Sukuna what is he planning on doing, and there is a flashback to inside of Yuji's domain where Yuji asks Sukuna to release Megumi and return back to living inside of Yuji, and that he will spare Sukuna's life if he were to do that. Yuji then rolls reverse on Sukuna and says, "Sukuna, you are me," which I think is the same line that he dropped against Mahito. However, the meaning is slightly altered within this context. When he says this to Sukuna, he is likely referring to the fact that Sukuna belongs in his body, and that Yuji is a walking version of Sukuna, at least physically, not mentally of course. Whereas when he said this to Mahito, he was referring to the psychological side of things, with them being the same, and with that being the main concept behind their battle, and them being natural enemies. So that line has a lot of importance and brings the story, or at least a storyline around Yuji and curses, full circle. Back to the chapter though, Yuji picks up Sukuna's residuals and tells him that he was born being a curse without even realizing, and the monster he became was purely up to chance. However, since he had his grandpa and his teachings, he could live a different life, and he says, "Sukuna, let's try this one more time," likely implying that Sukuna is going to live on watching from inside of Yuji. Yuji likely wanting to change Sukuna over time through seeing how Yuji acts and his morals, showing that Yuji's ideology of having everyone die a proper death applies to literally anyone, whether curse or human. So he can't just let Sukuna die a meaningless death, and he wants to try once again to do what he failed to do inside of his domain, and Yuji says to Sukuna that he wants Sukuna not to curse someone, even if nobody in this world is willing to accept him, but he can live alone from within Yuji, and that Yuji will withhold this burden from the world in silence. Sukuna is enraged at what Yuji is implying and says that Yuji is a fool, or at least playing the fool, for this long, and to not underestimate Sukuna since he is a curse at heart. The scene then shifts once again and we see Urarame realizing that Sukuna has finally lost, and asks Akari what they will do now, to which Urarame says, "I already told you, this means the end," and there is no meaning to anything for her anymore since her entire existence in this future that she has been brought into relied solely on Sukuna beating everyone here. Urarame says the only logical reasoning for Sukuna's defeat was the fact that he was inside of an incarnated body, likely meaning that she believes that Sukuna in its peak would have easily wiped the floor with all of the modern day sorcerers, which I will give it to her, it is possible. But we can't forget the fact that he did rely heavily on mahoraga. but maybe in the past his firepower would have been much higher and he could have beaten Gojo without mahoraga in his actual body. Also, it kind of makes sense that Yuji's soul punches wouldn't have been anywhere near as effective, as their sole purpose was to separate Megumi and Sukuna's soul to lessen Sukuna's cursed energy output, but that wouldn't work in the past against Sukuna. So yeah, I guess what she is saying has some validity to it. But Urarame says that they were all just lucky and that they were saved from being born 1000 years too late. To which Hikari, the goat, just says, "I was lucky, huh? That is the highest praise I could ever receive." Yeah, Urarame definitely picked a poor choice of words to say to the biggest gambler their world has ever seen. But Urarame's body slowly crumbles as she just laughs at Hikari's comment. So I guess their fight ended up being a draw, and it's safe to say we aren't getting any flashbacks on their fight with us only having 3 chapters left. So I just pray the anime makes this fight a reality, otherwise I'm telling you there will be riots and I will happily be at the center of all of it. The scene shifts again as Megumi finally wakes up and asks what Nobara and Yuji are doing, as these two are just messing around trying to surprise him. Nobara and Yuji shout a Kugasaki survival surprise, and Megumi just says my bad for ruining the moment. Oh, I'm so glad the trio is finally back. These guys were so good back in the day and I'm glad we are seeing the bond between them once again. It reminds me of the Gojo trio, but I suppose that's pretty obvious to see, being so that this group was supposed to parallel the other group as the predecessors of each of them. Nobara then says that the class Madonna, who everyone assumed to be dead, was actually alive, and that they should be way more surprised to the point where they should even wet themselves or cry out of joy. But these two did already know, and Yuji says that he cried a little when he saw the resonance hit, and Megumi says he wasn't really surprised since he saw what happened inside of Sukuna. Yuji then takes out 2 letters which were written by Gojo for both of them that Shoko gave him. Megumi and Nobara are a bit shocked and say that it's not like him, and Nobara is slightly grossed out to even imagine Gojo writing a formal letter. Megumi notices that there is only 2 letters, and Yuji explains that he didn't get one since he spoke to Gojo directly. Nobara reads a letter and instantly crushes it, since it has information on her mother's whereabouts, but she couldn't care less about that, so she just throws away the letter. Megumi just laughs as he reads his letter, and Yuji and Nobara get curious and reach over to read Megumi's letter, as Megumi is still laughing, but the two of them are shocked to read it. As the letter says, unfortunately your father isn't around anymore because I killed him, very sorry. That is low-key cold from Gojo, and you can tell we are moving past the serious style that we had to endure during Sukuna's Jump Fest, and that these last few chapters are going to be a lot more light-hearted. Nobara then says that they have to meet up with Maki and the others, and she tells Megumi to attend, and Yuji says he has to apologize and thank everyone. Megumi is a tad confused, and Yuji tells him that it's about Yuta. Yuji then says that they have to save Yuta's life, and we see Maki, Toga, Kusakabe, Miwa and Momo all walking towards whatever they need to be at, as Maki screams, "Yuta, you damn bastard." Megumi worriedly asks, is that how saving Yuta should sound like? And the chapter just ends there, with the editor's comment being, is Okotsu alright? And that there is 3 more chapters until the finale of Jujutsu Kaisen. So that is the end of the chapter, and if you notice the mic quality is worse, my other one broke and I didn't have time to wait for my new one to arrive, so you guys did have to deal with the headset mic for today, so I do apologise. But let me know your thoughts on the chapter in the comments down below. Make sure to like the video if you did enjoy, and if you like this style of content then you could consider subscribing to not only support the channel, but also you will get recommended more of my videos in the future. But with that all said, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye.